She called me weak in a boardroom full of 12 executives, and 3 days later she was on one knee, metaphorically at least, begging me to be her fiancé. My name's Daniel Reyes, 31, Senior Product Strategist at Halden Cross Financial. I build the frameworks that make the company's investment models actually work. And for the last year, I'd been absolutely certain my boss hated me. Victoria Hale ran our division like she was allergic to warmth. 34, immaculate, terrifyingly precise, the kind of woman who could dismantle your entire quarterly presentation with one raised eyebrow. She'd been my direct manager for 14 months, and in that time, she'd never once said "good job" to my face. She had, however, said plenty of other things, in front of people, loudly. "Daniel's projections are cautious," she said once, in a room full of senior partners, which is a polite way of saying he's afraid of his own conclusions. Another time, "This is competent work. Competent is not the same as exceptional, and I'd like to see the difference before the next fiscal year." I used to go home and vent to my sister about it. "She humiliates me for sport," I told her. "I swear she circles the meeting on her calendar just to remind herself to destroy me." "Maybe she's threatened by you," my sister said. "She's my boss. She holds all the power." What exactly would she be threatened by? I didn't have an answer then. I do now. The morning everything changed, started like any other Tuesday. Badge scan, elevator, the smell of burnt coffee from the shared kitchen nobody cleaned. I had a 9 a.m. meeting to present the Meridian account restructuring. 4 months of work condensed into 18 slides. Victoria sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, reading glasses low on her nose, like she was already unimpressed, and I hadn't spoken yet. I got through slide 6 before she cut in. "Stop." She didn't even look up. "You're hedging. Every recommendation in this deck has 3 exit clauses. Do you actually believe in your own numbers, or are you building yourself an alibi in case they're wrong?" The room went quiet in that specific way. Rooms go quiet when everyone's grateful it isn't them. "I'm being thorough," I said. "You're being weak," she said, finally looking up. "There's a difference, Daniel. Thorough people take a position. Weak people hide behind qualifications, so nobody can blame them later. Which one are you?" I felt my face go hot. 12 executives in that room, and every single one of them was very interested in their notepads. "I'll revise the deck," I said, because it was the only sentence I trusted myself to say without my voice shaking. "Do that," she said, and moved on to the next agenda item like she hadn't just filleted me in front of half the leadership team. I don't remember the rest of the meeting. I remember walking out, jaw clenched, and running straight into Marcus Webb in the hallway, board member, silver-haired, smile like a car salesman who's already sold you the lemon. "Rough morning?" he said, entirely too pleased about it. "I've had better. Victoria's tough. Always has been." He clapped my shoulder, a gesture that felt more territorial than friendly. "You know, Daniel, your Meridian model is genuinely impressive work. I've been telling the board as much. Thank you. In fact," he said, "I think it's the kind of work that deserves a bigger stage. I'm putting together a special presentation for the Q3 Investor Summit. I'd like to feature it, under joint authorship, of course. Joint authorship. From a man who had contributed exactly 0 hours to that project. I'll think about it," I said, which was corporate for absolutely not, and walked away before he could keep smiling at me like that. I didn't think much more about it. I had a deck to revise and a boss to avoid for the rest of the week. Except avoiding Victoria turned out to be impossible, because 2 days later she called me into her office. Not a meeting room, her actual office, which I'd been in maybe 3 times in 14 months. She closed the door behind me. That alone should have told me something was wrong. "Sit," she said. I sat. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to not interrupt until I'm finished. Because if you interrupt, I will lose my nerve, and I don't have room in my schedule to lose my nerve twice." "Okay," I said slowly. She exhaled, and for the first time in 14 months, Victoria Hale looked less like a wall and more like a person standing in front of one. "Marcus Webb has been trying to steal credit for your work for the better part of a year," she said. "The Meridian model, the Castellan restructuring last spring, the automated risk framework you built in Q1, all of it. He's been positioning himself with the board as the strategic mind behind this division's success, and you've been the anonymous labor making him look brilliant." What? You heard me, And before you ask why I never told you, because every time I flagged it to leadership, Marcus reframed it as me being territorial about my own team's output. So instead, I did the only thing I could do without giving him ammunition. Which was? I made you look like you needed correcting, she said. Constantly, publicly, loudly enough that nobody in that boardroom would ever suspect I was protecting you, because from the outside, it looked like I couldn't stand you. I stared at her. 14 months of humiliation rearranged itself in my head, like a puzzle I'd been solving upside down. You were protecting me, I repeated, by tearing me apart in front of senior partners. If I'd praised your work the way it deserved, Marcus would have started attaching his name to it within a week. He does this, Daniel. He attaches himself to whoever's rising, and he detaches the moment there's risk. I needed him to believe you were a project I was managing, not a threat I was cultivating. It was the only way to buy you time to build a track record too solid for him to fully absorb. You could have told me, and risk you playing along badly, or worse, confronting him directly before you had leverage? She shook her head. You're an excellent strategist, Daniel. You are a terrible liar. Your face does this thing, she gestured vaguely at me, where every thought announces itself. I needed Marcus to underestimate both of us. That required you to actually believe I thought little of you. Congratulations, I said. Mission accomplished. I believed it completely. Something flickered across her face. Not quite guilt, but close enough to it that I almost didn't recognize it on her. I know, she said, quieter. I'm not proud of how convincing I was. I sat with that for a second. The anger was still there, but it was tangled now with something else. The strange, disorienting relief of learning the last year hadn't been what I thought it was. So why tell me now? She slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. Termination review. My name at the top. Dated for a board meeting in 6 days. Marcus filed a formal performance concern, she said. Cites the Meridian meeting as evidence of, quote, consistent strategic underperformance requiring leadership review. He's using my public criticism of you as ammunition to push you out, and once you're gone, there's no one left to contest his claim on your work. He plans to fold your projects under his own name retroactively. He's trying to get me fired, I said, using the humiliation you inflicted on me to protect me from him. When you say it like that, it sounds considerably worse. It sounds exactly as bad as it is, Victoria. She didn't flinch from that. To her credit, she never did. I have a plan, she said. You're not going to like the first 30 seconds of it, but I need you to hear the whole thing before you object. I'm listening. There's an old company bylaw, she said. Halden Cross was originally a family firm, 3 generations back. One of the founding provisions states that no board action can be taken to terminate or materially demote an employee who is engaged or married to a sitting division head without a full board vote and a mandatory 90-day review period. It was written to prevent nepotistic firings during a family dispute decades ago. It's never been repealed. It's obscure, borderline embarrassing, and completely, legally binding. Quote, I stared at her. You want me to fake being engaged to you? I want to buy you 90 days, she said, during which I will build an airtight paper trail proving Marcus has been misrepresenting authorship on company projects for over a year. 90 days is enough time to do that properly, instead of scrambling to defend you in 6 days with half the evidence I need. Victoria, this is insane. I'm aware. People will find out. HR will find out. The entire board will know within a week that we're not actually... They'll suspect, she said. Suspecting isn't proof, and the bylaw doesn't require proof of sincerity, only formal notice of engagement, which I can file today. Marcus will scream nepotism and manipulation, which will make him look paranoid and desperate in front of a board that already finds him faintly insufferable. And every day he spends trying to prove we're lying is a day he's not spending finishing the job of destroying your career. I laughed, short, disbelieving. You've really thought this through. I've had 6 days to think about very little else. I looked at the termination review again. My name, my work. Someone else's name about to be stapled on top of it. Why does it matter to you? I asked. The truth, Victoria, not the strategic answer. Why does any of this matter enough for you to propose something this insane? She was quiet for a moment, and for once, she didn't have an immediate, polished response ready. Because you're the best strategist I've worked with in 9 years at this company, she said finally. And I am not going to stand by and watch Marcus Webb wear your work like a suit he bought off someone else's back. That's the professional answer. And the other one? Her jaw tightened slightly. The other one is that I've spent 14 months tearing you down in public and building you up in private. And somewhere in that process, the two versions of how I feel about you stopped being easy to keep separate. I'd rather not examine that further today, if it's all the same to you. I didn't say anything. I don't think I could have, honestly. My chest had gone tight in a way that had nothing to do with the termination review sitting between us. So, she said, businesslike again, walls back up fast. Will you do it? This is either the best idea I've ever heard, I said, or the worst decision of my professional life. Statistically, she said, it might be both. I almost smiled. Fine. Fake engagement. 90 days. What do we tell people? The truth, mostly, she said, that we've been quietly seeing each other for several months. And given the sudden professional threat, we decided to formalize things sooner than planned. It's boring enough to be believable, and vague enough that nobody can disprove specific details. And the ring, she reached into her desk drawer and set a small velvet box on the table between us, sliding it toward me with 2 fingers, like it was a contract addendum, and not, in any universe, a proposal. I bought one, she said. For appearances, it's not expensive. I didn't want anyone accusing us of extravagance on top of everything else. I opened it. Simple gold band, 1 modest stone, nothing dramatic. It suited her, somehow. Precise, understated, no wasted movement. You bought an engagement ring in 6 days, I said. I'm efficient. You're terrifying. Also accurate, she said. Do we have a deal, Daniel? I looked at the ring, then at her, Victoria Hale, who had spent 14 months humiliating me in boardrooms to keep a predator from stealing my career, and who was now asking me, in her clipped, controlled voice, to pretend to marry her to finish the job. Deal, I said. The company found out within 2 days, exactly as she'd predicted. HR sent a congratulatory memo that read like a hostage negotiation. Marcus Webb, to his credit, didn't scream. He did something worse. He smiled at both of us in the hallway, said, "How wonderful," and I could see the gears in his head recalculating in real time. The next 6 weeks were the strangest of my life. We had to perform closeness we'd never practiced. Small things first. Her hand on my arm during a meeting, both of us laughing a beat too long at something only mildly funny in front of exactly the people we needed to convince. We got coffee together every morning, ostensibly for appearances, though somewhere around week 3 I noticed I was showing up 10 minutes early, just for the excuse. You take it black, I said one morning, watching her order. No sugar, nothing. I always assumed you'd take it with something. Complicated, like you. Coffee doesn't need decoration, she said. It needs to work. That's a very you sentence. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't strictly one, I said, and she almost smiled. The real kind, not the boardroom kind, the one that barely moved her mouth but changed her whole face. I started noticing that smile a lot. I started noticing a lot of things. The way she twisted the fake ring when she was thinking hard, an unconscious tell that undercut every ounce of her controlled exterior. The way she stayed late every night building the evidence file against Marcus, printouts and timestamps and email trails, refusing to let anyone else touch it in case it needed to hold up under real scrutiny. You don't have to do all this alone, I told her one night, finding her still at her desk past 9. I do, actually. If this falls apart, it needs to be traceable to me and nobody else. I'm not letting you carry any risk you didn't sign up for. I signed up for the fake engagement, Victoria. I think I can handle shared risk. You signed up for 90 days of pretending, she said, not looking up from her laptop. That's different from actual jeopardy. Is it? Because it doesn't feel that different from where I'm standing. She looked up then. Something passed between us. Quick, unspoken, gone before either of us could name it out loud. Go home, Daniel, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. Only if you do too. Fine, together then. Purely for appearances. Purely, I agreed, and neither of us believed it anymore. The turning point came at the company's autumn gala. Black tie, string quartet. The kind of event where everyone performs their best version of themselves for an audience of investors. Victoria and I arrived together, her hand resting lightly at my elbow, a picture-perfect couple that had somehow, over 6 weeks, stopped feeling entirely like a performance. Marcus found us near the bar, 2 drinks in, confidence restored. "The happy couple," he said. "You know, I did some digging. 6 weeks ago, neither of you had so much as a lunch reservation together. Quite the whirlwind." "We kept things quiet," Victoria said smoothly. "Some of us prefer privacy to spectacle, Marcus." "Of course," he smiled that car salesman smile. "Convenient timing, though. Engagement filed 4 days before a termination review. Almost like it was designed to exploit an obscure bylaw. Almost like you designed the termination review to exploit an obscure loophole in employment ethics," I said. "Funny how that works." His smile thinned. "Careful, Daniel. Your position here is more precarious than you realize." "My position," I said, "is currently protected by a company bylaw, a paper trail your own emails helped create, and a fiancé with considerably more patience for due process than I have. I'd sit this one out if I were you." Something shifted behind his eyes, the first real flicker of doubt I'd seen from him. He excused himself a moment later, and Victoria let out a breath I hadn't realized she'd been holding. "You didn't need to do that," she said. "I wanted to. He's not done. He'll come back at this from another angle. Let him. You've been building a case for 6 weeks. I trust it." She looked at me, something unguarded crossing her face in the low gold light of the ballroom. "You trust me." "Completely," I said. "Which is strange, considering 14 months ago, I thought you hated me." "I never hated you," she said quietly. "I want to be clear about that. Not for one day of those 14 months. I know that now. Do you?" Her voice had dropped, the noise of the party fading into background static. "Because I need you to understand something, Daniel, and I'm only going to say this once, so I need you to actually hear it. I'm listening." "This started as strategy," she said. "The engagement, the ring, all of it. I told myself it was purely tactical, and for the first 2 weeks it mostly was. But somewhere in there, the coffee, the late nights, you staying to help build the case even though I told you not to, it stopped being tactical for me. And I don't know how to say that without it sounding like I'm confusing gratitude with something real, so I need you to tell me if I'm wrong." My chest went tight in that same way it had in her office 6 weeks ago. "You're not wrong," I said. "I've been trying to figure out for 2 weeks how to tell you the exact same thing without sounding like an idiot." "You do sound a little like an idiot," she said, but her voice was soft, almost trembling under the composure. "Comes with the territory. Daniel, I fell for you somewhere around week 3, I said, before I lost the nerve. Possibly earlier if I'm honest. Possibly the exact moment you told me you'd spent 14 months humiliating me on purpose to protect me, which should not be romantic, and somehow was the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for me. That's a low bar for romance. I contain multitudes." She laughed. Real, unguarded, the sound cutting straight through 6 weeks of performance. "This ring," she said, looking down at it, "was supposed to be a legal technicality. And now I'm considerably less interested in giving it back at the end of 90 days. Victoria Hale," I said, "are you upgrading a fake engagement into a real one in the middle of a company gala, next to an ice sculpture? Don't make it sound absurd." "It's a little absurd." "I'm aware," she said, echoing her own words from 6 weeks ago, and this time I did smile, wide and unguarded, because somewhere between the boardroom humiliations and the late-night evidence files, this woman had gone from the person I feared most at Halden Cross to the one I couldn't imagine my days without. "For the record," I said, stepping closer, "I'd like the real version, whenever you're ready." "I'm ready now," she said. "I've simply never been good at admitting things before I've fully documented them. There's my strategist. There's your fiancé," she said. "Actual. This time. No bylaw required." 3 months later, the board formally cleared me of Marcus Webb's performance review, unanimously. Once Victoria's evidence file made its way through legal, thick enough with timestamps and misattributed emails that Marcus resigned before the vote could even finish. Nobody mourned him. Victoria and I got married the following spring. Small ceremony, close friends, her mother crying more than either of us expected. I kept the original ring. She insisted, said it had earned its place, said something about sentiment being an inefficient use of jewelry budgets, and then wore it every single day anyway. At the reception, my sister cornered her by the dessert table. "So he tells me you humiliated him constantly for over a year," she said, only half joking. "I did," Victoria said, entirely unbothered. "Best decision I ever made." "That's a strange thing to be proud of." "It saved his career," Victoria said, "and somewhere along the way, it apparently also won his heart." "I'll take the win." I slid an arm around her waist. "For the record, I've forgiven you." "Mostly. Mostly," she repeated. "I'll take that too." Would you have trusted someone who tore you down in public if you found out they were protecting you the whole time? And do you think a lie built for the right reasons can still turn into something real?